It was a peaceful evening in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The street was lined with neatly trimmed lawns and cozy homes, where families were settling in for the night. Everything seemed serene until a sudden burst of red and blue lights broke the calm. A police car screeched to a halt, its siren cutting through the stillness. A black sedan had been pulled over at the edge of the road. The officer stepped out first, his boots thudding heavily against the pavement. He adjusted his belt, resting one hand firmly on his holstered weapon, a move that screamed authority. From the sedan emerged a man in a perfectly tailored black suit. He moved with a composed, deliberate calm, seemingly unfazed by the flashing lights and the officer's imposing stance. He stood tall, his presence commanding attention, and his eyes locked directly on the approaching officer. "License and registration," the officer barked, his voice cold and sharp, a tone designed to intimidate. But the man in the suit didn't flinch. Slowly, he reached into his pocket, not for his wallet, but for something far more significant. In one swift motion, he produced a small golden badge. Holding it up high, he spoke firmly. "Detective Michael Cole, Internal Affairs." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The officer, James Porter, stared at the badge, his confident demeanor cracking ever so slightly. Internal Affairs. The very words sent a ripple of unease through the air. This wasn't just another traffic stop. This was something far bigger. To understand how we got to this point, we need to rewind. Detective Michael Cole wasn't your average investigator. Known for his methodical approach and unwavering commitment to justice, he had spent years taking down corrupt individuals, often from within the very system meant to protect the public. This wasn't just a job for Cole, it was a personal mission. Months ago, whispers of corruption within the department began to surface. Citizens had complained about officers abusing their power, falsifying reports, and making arrests that didn't quite add up. At first, these complaints were ignored, swept under the rug by higher-ups who didn't want the bad press. But the rumors persisted, growing louder with each passing week. And one name kept coming up, Officer James Porter. Porter had been on the force for years. To his colleagues, he was known as a no-nonsense enforcer who got the job done. But to the citizens he policed, he was something else entirely, someone who bent the rules, intimidated those who dared to question him, and wielded his authority like a weapon. Complaints against him had a strange way of disappearing, leaving victims with no recourse and no justice. Cole took notice. He began digging, quietly at first, gathering scraps of evidence, a misplaced report here, a missing piece of body cam footage there. Soon, a pattern emerged. Porter wasn't acting alone. His actions were part of a larger web of corruption that extended beyond just one officer. Cole knew he was onto something big, but he also knew that uncovering the truth would require careful planning. Tonight was no coincidence. Cole had been tracking Porter for weeks, mapping out his patrol routes and studying his behavior. He had waited for the perfect moment to confront him, and now that moment had arrived. Back in the present, Porter's composure was slipping. He took a step back, glancing nervously between the badge in Cole's hand and the detective's unyielding gaze. "What's this about?" Porter asked, his voice tinged with a mix of anger and unease. "You tell me," Cole replied coolly. "Step away from the car, Officer Porter." The tension was palpable. Nearby, curtains twitched as neighbors peeked out, drawn by the flashing lights and the unmistakable air of confrontation. Porter hesitated, his jaw tightening. He was used to being the one in control, the one giving the orders. But now, the tables had turned. "You don't have jurisdiction here," Porter shot back, his voice rising in defiance. Cole's expression didn't waver. He took a step closer, lowering his voice so only Porter could hear. "This isn't about jurisdiction. This is about accountability. You've been under investigation for months. I have evidence, reports, footage, witnesses. And tonight, I'm here to get some answers. Porter's defiance began to crumble. Cole reached into his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents, copies of falsified reports, complaints that had been buried, and damning video footage. As he laid them out, Porter's face turned pale. You thought you could keep hiding behind your badge, Cole said, his tone sharp. But you crossed the line. And now, it's over. Porter's bravado faltered. He stammered, trying to come up with excuses. It wasn't just me, he blurted. There are others, higher-ups. They made me do it. Cole nodded slightly. This was what he had been waiting for. Porter wasn't just a rogue officer, he was a link in a much larger chain. You'll have your chance to explain, Cole said. But first, you're going to cooperate. You're going to help me bring down everyone involved in this. As the conversation unfolded, the flashing lights drew a small crowd of onlookers. Some filmed the scene on their phones, their whispers adding to the charged atmosphere. Porter, realizing he had no way out, finally relented. He agreed to provide information in exchange for leniency, a decision that would unravel a web of corruption reaching deep into the department. But for Cole, this was just the beginning. Taking down Porter was a victory, yes, but it was also a reminder of the work that still needed to be done. Corruption didn't thrive in isolation. It thrived in silence, in systems that turned a blind eye to injustice. In the weeks that followed, Cole's investigation led to multiple arrests and a complete overhaul of the department's leadership. Porter's cooperation proved invaluable, but it was Cole's unwavering determination that made it all possible.